Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Whatever Show. I am your host, Davis.
And I am your other host, Caleb.
And we are finally back after a very long 2-year hiatus.
I know.
Caleb, how does it feel? How does it feel being back?
Well, I just think that it's very fitting. Season 2 and 2 years later,
I think you're exactly right.
Nothing sounds better to me than that. Except for maybe actually being consistent, which we are so good at. So good.
So, for everyone listening, why don't we tell them a little bit about where we've been these past 2 years?
Well, I guess I will take the floor since you were doing all the cool bits. I have been very busy working at Georgia Tech, and that's pretty much a lot of what I've been doing is just doing my schooling over there and all the craziness of senior year, which would account for the 2-year part, I guess. And then also working whenever I am not at Georgia Tech, so staying busy either way. What about you, Davis?
So yeah, pretty much, the last time the Whatever Show had an upload was when we were both seniors in high school, and now here we are. It is August 15th, and we are becoming college sophomores. Can you believe it? Last time we recorded, seniors in high school, now sophomores in college. Babies, absolute babies. Now we're baby adults. But yeah, so after graduating, I went to University of Georgia, go Dogs.
Oh, stinky.
And so now,
oh, stinky.
Oh, yeah, see, here we go. Now,
agriculture school. No, I'm kidding.
Now your two hosts are divided as friends, divided as foes.
For the better.
But yeah.
And for the worse.
No matter what, though, we've always got a bond that goes deeper than school, hopefully.
Goes back to treadmills.
That's right. But yeah, here we are. It's been 2 years, and we are essentially doing a full revamp of the Whatever Show. So whatever you remember from before, put that to the side, because this is going to be all new.
Unremember it, please.
Unremember it all. So yeah, this is the full revamp. Except for the good parts, yeah, those are staying. But basically, for anyone who's new to the fully new revamped Whatever Show, basically what we are is we are a podcast with me and Caleb as your two hosts, and every week, as the name implies, we talk about whatever. And that's a pretty big umbrella to say that that's what your podcast is for. So more specifically, we have our podcast broken into seasons, and each season we have a theme. And for those 10 episodes, we try to do 10 episode seasons. Season 1 was cut short. We didn't finish it.
Didn't we?
Yeah, we saw how well that worked. But this one, season 2 is going to have 10 episodes, or that's the plan at least. And basically, every season has a theme. So season 1's theme was answering the big questions of life. And essentially what we did there is we would pick a problem, a question, something about the world or life at large, and as two high school seniors, we would do our best to talk about it, break it down, and try to propose an answer to solve that problem. And so as you can imagine, as two high school seniors, we did not have all the answers. We still don't have all the answers.
I'm let down. Absolutely let down.
I know. I'm sorry.
It's
okay. I was lying the whole time.
We are back and better and more experienced than ever.
We are. Got 2 years of growth under our belt. We are back going strong. And Season 2's theme is going to be similar to Season 1, but we're taking a little bit of a different approach. The theme for Season 2 is going to be breaking it down.
We're breaking it down.
Breaking it down. Similar to Season 1, we're going to be taking problems or issues that we see, whether that be in our own small life here in college, just like our own personal life, or things that are larger. Just depends on, whatever we want to talk about. And so we're going to take problems like that, and basically we're going to spend about half an hour, give or take, and we're going to be telling stories, personal stories that relate to those problems, and we're going to be breaking them down into smaller pieces, analyzing and thinking about where those problems come from, what might be causing them. Like, where do the issues that we see around us, like, do they have roots in certain ideas, in certain popular thought? Like, where do these problems arise from? And we're going to spend some time just talking back and forth, telling stories, and we're going to do our best to break down these problems into smaller, easier to digest pieces and see if we can find where they all come from as a source.
I think that is really maybe the best way to handle some problems. I think that it really allows everyone to at least be on the same page to an extent, because you get to find more common ground whenever you realize that maybe the root of your problem is not so different than everyone else's. So I think that it could be maybe a thought-provoking type thing. That's why I'm so excited about the season.
Absolutely. I'm really excited about it too, because another thing is it's really hard to solve a problem if you're trying to like give medicine to the wrong illness. You know, like what I mean by that is, like, if you see an issue in the world and you're trying to fix it, but the solution that you're using to try to fix the problem is for something else entirely, and the real problem hidden beneath it all is actually something totally different. That's what we're trying to find out, is if the problems that we see around us actually have a deeper, different problem underneath that is maybe hidden at first sight, but after we talk about it and break it down, it might become more clear to the outside eye.
And who knows, maybe Davis and I, in our infinite wisdom, could learn something else from each other.
Absolutely.
We have before.
Yeah, I'm
at
hoping...
least we're telling ourselves that. No, I'm kidding. Davis has been a great source of life lessons in different ways, so hopefully he can continue that and share it with all of you too.
Absolutely.
No pressure.
Me and Caleb have been through a lot together, and Caleb has definitely been a source of strength and encouragement and advice in my life for sure. And so definitely, hopefully we can carry that into this podcast and be able to go new places with that.
Wow.
So I guess that's enough intro rambling.
Yeah.
What is our topic for today's episode? Episode 1, Season 2, Episode 1, the revamp of the Whatever Show. What problem are we going to be breaking down today?
I wonder what it could be. Could it possibly be something about high school? Something that we're oh so familiar with?
Ooh. We're sophomores in high school. I mean, sophomores in college. My bad. We're sophomores in college, and we're talking about high school? This is risky for our first episode.
I know, we're old now.
I know.
But maybe we could look at how people overemphasize or really underemphasize their college, or golly, Davis, you got me too, their high school experience.
Yeah, exactly. So that's this week's problem that we're going to be looking at, is emphasis on high school, and whether you go and you emphasize your high school years too much and become, in a way, stuck there, or whether you underemphasize your high school years and you cast them off, they never happened, worst years of your life, not even going to think about it.
Lessons,
high school,
nothing.
What is that? Exactly. And so both of those, in our eyes, are problems. And we're going to be breaking down that large issue of emphasis on high school. And we're going to be talking about how maybe those problems might come from certain ideas, or, you know, what kind of negative effects these kind of problems cause.
And I think that something that is really important to think about as we go into this is we are 100% going to solve the problems by talking about them right here on this podcast. So you should totally go ahead and like and subscribe, because once you get done hearing this, your ears are just going to be full of solutions, right, David?
That's the dream. The dream is that by talking about these problems, we find some solutions. But, in reality, what's probably going to happen is we're going to have some conversation that might expand our knowledge a little bit about these issues. But, we can't promise any actual answers. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
But I guess, without further ado, let's get into high school over and under emphasis.
So I guess to start here, let's talk about why this is a problem in the first place, or another way to think about it, like what kind of issues is this causing that actually makes it a problem? Like why does this even matter? Underemphasize, overemphasize, like who cares? Why does that matter? Let's start there.
I think that something to look at, or I guess maybe think about at the bare minimum, is how it can definitely be hurtful to you to kind of dismiss everything that may have happened and all the personal growth and development that could have taken place during that time. To me, now this is obviously an opinion, but it almost could be like a disservice to yourself and kind of the different challenges that you went through and how you could maybe apply those to your life to help further yourself in different situations. That's kind of what one big thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. Like, as far as, I think you're talking about underemphasizing. Am I correct there? So, yeah, as far as underemphasizing goes, I think one big issue, just like you said, is like you lose out a lot on the lessons you had the potential to learn, because no matter where you are in life, whether it be good times or bad times, looking back, you can always find a lesson, and I'm a pretty strong believer in that.
No, I agree.
And so I definitely think that by underemphasizing and casting aside your years in high school, you were definitely missing out on the opportunity to look back and see opportunity to grow and lessons and things like that you would miss by ignoring its existence.
Yeah. Something else is, maybe this is just like business brain, but you miss out on so much networking that has been made during that time, and kind of like connections.
Oh, absolutely.
Or even not even on a business wide, but like just with your friends and like maybe the acquaintances that you wanted to be more than like just acquaintances with, that you wanted to be friends with, that you were shutting off yourself to that opportunity whenever you just disregard those years. I think that it really can, it could really put you back in an environment that could help you make connections that could help you out in the future.
So, Caleb, I don't mean to prod you here in this direction if this isn't where you want to go, but looking back on our high school experience, I seem to remember, in my head at least, that there was a period of time where you kind of had this view of, I just need to get to college. That's what's most important. There's not much for me here in high school.
Yeah.
And so I don't mean that like in a negative way, but just as a sense of we can use that to maybe talk about this side of things a little bit more. Maybe you could kind of share your experience there and like your high school experience a little bit.
Sure. For me, I found that there were some really nice things about high school, like lack of responsibility, which I think everyone enjoys and notices whenever they get to college. But there's different things that I really did not desire about high school. There's a lot of stuff with me where I was trying to get as far ahead as I could in preparation for things like college and just furthering my education. So I definitely got a big glass of doing things at college whenever I started doing full-time dual enrollment. And really, to me, what I think was kind of immature was just the fact that I was not seeing the opportunity for what it was, if that makes sense. Specifically in that kind of connections and networking regard. Even if you aren't, even if you aren't great friends with everyone, I don't even think that that's like the standard or what most people do. But I think that being cordial and being kind goes really a long way. But whenever you try to shut people off, or just like, in my experience, like I would not necessarily shut people off, but I would be setting myself in different situations where I would not be able to. I would miss out on those same connections that you might get if you just had a full high school experience without fully immersing yourself into dual enrollment like I did. So I think that that's kind of the angle that I look at it now, is I definitely miss out on that opportunity to make good connections and good networking through, acquaintances and like friends that I may have had if I had stayed like full time in high school.
So do you think maybe that is one reason why people might undervalue or underappreciate their high school years, is because they had a difficult time with relationships in high school, and not just dating, but like you were talking about with friends and this social aspect and this networking, because I think that's really important, because a lot of times bad memories and bad experiences are rooted somehow in relationships with other people, and whether that went well or poorly, and like some of the pain that can come from loneliness and isolation and rejection in some cases. So like, you think, like you were talking about with your experience of just like being on a one-track mind to get out of high school, get to college, prepare as much as you can, and like having this very future-centered goal. Do you think that has any like connection to people undervaluing their high school years?
I would say it really depends on how much you dip into that lifestyle change, I guess. Because there's varying degrees of how you can handle preparing yourself for the future. You can, like, I might describe it as like over dabble or overspill into that category of just trying to do extreme preparation for college and kind of shutting out the world that's happening around you. I think that could definitely be very limiting and could cause people to undervalue their high school years. But I'm not saying that everyone that is going for those more prepared or like future-oriented goals is exclusively doing that, you know what I mean, and not living in the moment. So
absolutely. I think you're totally right.
I think there's it's a very hard balance, because being engrossed in that future and what it can become is definitely something that's kind of easy to fall into. But it's definitely, I think in an ideal situation, it's great to kind of like, breathe the fresh air and really get plugged in while you're preparing for the future. Really spend that time, with the people that you are around, because you're with people for a season. And I think that you don't ever know how long or what that season looks like, but I think that it's great to take advantage of that season and, like I said earlier, make that network, make that connection, show that kindness, and move forward with, those good intentions at heart. I think that would be the perfect way to execute that if you could.
Right, and I think it's just like you said, like, it all boils back down to finding that gentle balance between living here in the moment with all the people and things that are around you now, which is the only time you can live in, is right now in this moment, but also balancing that at the same time with a very, like, it's healthy to plan ahead for the future too. So it's like this balance, of living in the moment or looking ahead and being prepared and planning in a smart way for the future. Because if you go too far in either direction, it's going to hurt you either way.
Yeah. And I think...
And so,
if you don't mind me interjecting, I think that that's where it boils down to the person to decide if those connections are as important as, the extra preparedness might get them. You know what I mean? Like, that is when, like, the person will have to decide what they may desire most or what they're trying to get out of high school. If they're just trying to get, like, a one-way, like, street to college, then, perhaps that is exactly what they need. But something that might be a different thought is that, someone may be trying to do some sort of trade or something like that. Why would they not be making all that connection, like all that networking? Okay, sorry, said that wrong. Why would they not be going out of their way to make those connections and to have that huge network to help them get off the ground as soon as they get done with high school? Like, I think that those are both
that's a good point.
Opportunities, but it really has to be tailored to what you want to do.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think we might have hit kind of maybe at a center point of this whole issue when we were talking about this of, the problem we're talking about is people who either over or underemphasize their high school years. And so, we were talking a lot just now about this difference in living in the moment and living ahead for the future.
Yeah.
And how both are healthy in a balance, but going too far either way is what causes the issue. And so I think that might actually be what at least one root of this whole problem with high school emphasis is like the people who are too far focused on living in the now, in the moment. You almost get this fear of the future, of like, what I know now, in this moment, in the present, I know this is good, I know this is safe, and I know that I'm comfortable here.
Of course.
And that, I think, leads to the view that's like, you're stuck on high school, and you overemphasize it, you can't get past it. Whereas on the other side, if you have this future-oriented mindset of the best is always over the horizon, like, we've always got to keep moving forward, like, we got to get to tomorrow because it's going to be better than today, without stopping to take advantage and, in a sense, smell the roses that are blooming now. I think that's kind of where you get to the underemphasis of high school. And so I think, like, in a bigger sense, that whole mindset and that whole
balance
debate, that balance, right, between living too much in the moment or too much in the future might be where this is all kind of boiling from.
Oh, yeah. I definitely agree. I think that it can be super tempting, like you said, like that comfort thing. I think that is so real. I think that can definitely be said that it's really, like, present in our generation as well. And if you disagree, that's totally fine. But I think that we definitely enjoy our comfort. You know what I mean? Whatever
Absolutely,
that looks like.
For sure. I know I do.
I think that it's so difficult to come out of that comfort, but once you do, it's almost refreshing, really. You realize that there's so many more opportunities at your fingertips, but you'd have to sacrifice that comfort that comes, with the things like you said earlier, like with the things that you know, like knowing your home. You know what I mean? Like for the college example, which I know that we're bleeding in way too into college, but whatever. But like you know, you're gonna take that comfort in your home, but you know it's gonna be quite uncomfortable if you have to move to a different city, like both of us had to, and you have to go to Athens or Atlanta. Then you're gonna have to step out of that comfort zone if you want to, you know, get out of that moment. If you want to have some of that personal growth. To me, I think that happens whenever you're able to really reach and grab, you know, hold on to something that'll help pull you out of that comfort zone. So I think that, I guess, tying that back in, it's super easy to be satisfied with the comfort, but I think it's important to realize that growth doesn't come from the comfort. It comes from the uncomfortable situations. And
that's great. Yeah. Yeah, no. I think the way you said that was perfect. Like, yeah, that was really good of, you know, the growth comes from the hard times, not the comfortable times. And so I think that's absolutely one issue that can happen if you're too much in the mindset of being stuck on high school.
Exactly.
And you can't move on. Like, those were the good old days. Nothing will ever top that. And like, taking this to a broader issue, like, you think about all kinds of people where in their life there were the good old days, and like, that's this whole thing blown up on a way bigger scale. You know,
exactly.
Like, you know, take it away from high school. It can be anything. It can be college. It can be, you know, when you had that job way back. It can be, you know, when the gas was cheap, whatever. But it's like that whole idea of like back in the good old days. And when you're in that mindset, it just becomes this big problem of you can't appreciate
the now,
what's to come. You know, like you're stuck there, and like, you can't appreciate the present where you are now. You can't appreciate the new good things that have come up in your life. And like, that fixation and getting stuck on a point like that is really, really unhealthy for you in your present life.
Oh yeah.
You know?
It really drowns out everything else, because everything else is just a comparison. It's just a feeling side by side. And I feel like this is, you know, big opinion here, but you know, you may remember something as better than it was because your mind just cut out the rest of the, you know, junk that was happening during that time. But you remember the great stuff. Like, you're going to remember the great stuff and the really horrible stuff. But if you just fixate on the great stuff and you just forget about the negative sides of it, and you're just comparing a real life with a super nice, super just like happy and perfect like fantasy of the past, then it's never going to measure up, ever. Neither is your future, because you're stuck in that moment. And I think
that's absolutely the danger of fixating, you know. Of course, fixating too much on your high school years, that would be a problem, but just in a wider general sense, like, that fixation is very smothering.
And it's tempting.
And and it is. It's absolutely very tempting. And like, I know, like, in my own life, I do that all the time, of where I'll think back to a time when, at least in my head, you know, it was all sunshine and roses and things were going great. And like, that happens to me all the time. And like, a lot of times you don't even think about it, of how you're just, in your mind, you're shifting over to this view of how great the past was. Really. And you're, and I think the same thing goes the other way for the other side of this whole problem too. Like you said, if you focus on the negative. Yeah, exactly. Or if you take it the other way and you focus on, you know, back then the grass was always, I don't know, blacker and dead and shriveled.
Yeah, so the hyper-negative side of it, really.
Exactly, yeah, because you can do the same thing both directions.
And that's when you miss out on the lessons, too.
And so, yeah, that would be the view that's like, you underappreciate high school, and like you only remember the negative parts, and even by doing that you completely ruin the possibility of growing from it, because you're not viewing it with an open mind of like, okay, yes, there were good and bad times, let me learn from the bad times. It's like, when it all becomes this big mass of badness, like, you just don't want to touch it, you know?
And you completely shut off the opportunity of applying any of it to your future. And who knows, you may have a similar situation on a different scale of an issue that you had in high school. Like, I think that there is a lot of issues that are, you know, ultimately similar, which is, I think, why we came to breaking it down for this season. So I think that it's really just a matter of taking in, you know, that realistic expectation of what is to come, but also not sugarcoating the past, or even, you know, turning it into like a hyper negative past. Like, trying to be as realistic with yourself as you can about the past and the future is that balance that we were describing earlier, where you're not just stuck in the past or stuck trying to set up a future that will never exist.
Yeah, I think that is a great way to wrap up this episode of Season 2, Episode 1, The Whatever Show, breaking it down. You know, we're reaching our time limit, and I think, you know, we hit a lot of really good points today on this issue of over or undervaluing high school, under emphasizing it. And I think one thing that we said that we wanted to do for each of these new episodes is at the end kind of really quickly go through the different points we made and maybe the lessons to take away here, and then we'll wrap it up for this week.
Sorry, I kind of cheated a little bit and did that a little bit already.
No, you're totally fine. But yeah, I guess just in conclusion, the things I really took away from our discussion today was that, you know, you have this problem of people over undervaluing high school, and that can be blown up into a much grander scale of people over or undervaluing different points in their life and fixating on those. And I think that's really where we started to get kind of into more of the root problem here of this fixation and this like suffocating effect that happens when you do that, and how you can either, you know, focus so much on living in the comfort and the familiarity that you fixate on the past, or you can fixate so much on what's to come in the future that you completely miss out on everything that's happening around you. And like, that's the real dilemma there of, you know, this balance of finding the now versus the future, and like how much to live in each world, you know?
Exactly. I think that maybe what I'll add to it is just what I think. This is the Caleb's opinion area, I guess. I think what the solution may really boil down to is just, I don't know, you could say realism if you want. Just being authentic with yourself and your experiences, and being authentic with what the future may hold. Not to say to limit yourself, but just to say that you should be setting realistic goals if you're trying to have, you know, some sort of, you know, goal you're working towards in the future. And you should also be working in the present to soak in the time and the opportunities that you've been given. I think that is really Caleb's opinion to how to help with this problem.
I think that's a very good take on it. And, you know, I just want to add one more thought I had was when you were talking about like seeing things as they are, like accurately and realistically. like that reminded me a lot of a Bible verse that talks about being in a sober mindset. And so I just think about that. I think about like not being too drunk on
life,
the good times and being fixated on that, and like not being too drunk on the bad times and being fixated there, but like having a sober mindset looking back on it all.
Yeah. That was
I think those are some good concluding thoughts there.
Yes. Well, since Davis took us in, I am going to take us out. So, thank you for tuning in to The Whatever Show, Season 2.
New and revamped.
Episode 1. Breaking it down. Over/underemphasizing high school. My name is Caleb Benton. And his name.
And my name is Davis Huber.
And
we were proud to be your host this week.
Thank you for listening.